The Kremlin continues to suffer significant losses in personnel as it seeks tactical successes in the Donetsk region. This fall alone, Russian forces have lost nearly 126,000 soldiers during their offensives, reports the Institute for the Study of War (ISW). Analysts have cited the latest data from the UK Ministry of Defence. On December 5, 2024, it was reported that Russia's average daily personnel losses in November 2024 reached a historic high of 1,523 casualties per day. Additionally, on November 28, 2024, Russian forces suffered over 2,000 losses in a single day for the first time. Estimates suggest that Russia's total losses for November amounted to 45,690 soldiers. The UK Ministry of Defence noted that November marked the fifth consecutive month of increased Russian casualties. According to analysts, geolocation evidence indicates that Russian forces advanced at a rate of approximately 27.96 square kilometers per day in November. In total, they seized 839 square kilometers during the month, including gains in both Ukraine and the Kursk region. Earlier, ISW reported that Russian forces experienced heightened casualties in September and October 2024. During this period, they lost 80,110 soldiers while capturing about 1,517 square kilometers in Ukraine and the Kursk region. Thus, Russian forces incurred approximately 125,800 personnel losses during the intense offensive operations in September, October, and November 2024. The Kremlin gained 2,356 square kilometers of territory in exchange for these sacrifices. Analysts also assessed these losses from another perspective. According to their calculations, Russia lost around 53 soldiers for every square kilometer of territory captured. Russia's limited manpower resources are unlikely to be able to sustain such a rise in casualties in the medium term, and continued Western military support for Ukraine remains vital to enable Ukraine to inflict casualties at this rate. The Kremlin's desire to maintain the initiative throughout the war in Ukraine and to continue its advance in eastern Ukraine has created dual demands on Russia's manpower. Additional efforts to increase Russian troop levels could further destabilize the Russian economy as Russia continues to grapple with labor shortages and rising inflation, the analysts explain. At the Institute for the Study of War, Russians can either fight or work for the domestic economy of the Russian Federation, but not both at the same time. The Kremlin is unlikely to be able to adequately meet its labor needs in either the military or Russia's domestic economy in the near future, and additional months of intensive offensive operations in Ukraine in 2025 and beyond will only complicate Russia's resource problems, the ISW predicts.
Three U.S. service members were being evaluated for potential traumatic brain injuries following an attack near a base in eastern Syria this week, Pentagon Press Secretary Major General Pat Ryder said Thursday. U.S. Central Command has advised that 3 U.S. service members are being evaluated for possible TBI, Ryder told reporters. Ryder said U.S. Central Command is still evaluating who was behind the attack near mission support site Euphrates, which prompted the U.S. to conduct counterstrikes on Tuesday. At the time, the Pentagon said rockets and mortars had landed in the vicinity of the base. The U.S. has about 900 troops in Syria to conduct missions to counter the Islamic State group. Meanwhile, Syrian insurgents have swept into the central city of Hama after days of intense clashes with government forces. The Syrian army said Thursday it has withdrawn from Hama after insurgents broke through its defenses. It is yet another setback for President Bashar Assad only days after losing control of Syria's largest city, Aleppo. The Syrian army said it redeployed from Hama and took positions outside the city to protect civilians. The stunning week-long offensive appears likely to continue, with the insurgents setting their sights on the central city of Homs, the country's third largest. Homs is the gate to the capital of Damascus. Pentagon officials said the strategy unifies the department's approach to countering these systems that looks across domains, characteristics, and time frames. In Thursday's briefing, Ryder said, unmanned systems, more commonly known as drones, have the potential to pose both an urgent and enduring threat to U.S. personnel, facilities and assets overseas and increasingly in the U.S. homeland. The Defense Department says these threats are changing how wars are fought and emphasizes that by producing a singular strategy for countering unmanned systems, the Secretary and the Department are orienting around a common understanding of the challenge and a shared approach to addressing it.
Just a few things here at the top. We'll get right on Tuesday, I highlighted U.S. self-defense strikes in the vicinity of MSS Euphrates in Syria, when U.S. forces faced an imminent danger due to several threats to include rockets and mortars fired in the direction of U.S. forces in the area. U.S. Central Command has advised that 3 U.S. service members are being evaluated for possible TBI. As you know, those numbers can fluctuate, and I'm not aware of any other injuries at this time. Again, we'll not hesitate to take appropriate action to protect our forces if they are threatened.
At all for any transition meetings or anything here in the Pentagon?
This week, the Secretary signed a classified strategy for countering unmanned systems to unify the Department's approach to countering these systems that looks across domains, characteristics, and timeframes. Unmanned systems, more commonly known as drones, have the potential to pose both an urgent and enduring threat to U.S. personnel, facilities, and assets overseas, and increasingly in the U.S. homeland.
U.S. military bases both abroad and in the States.
Looking at how we'll approach this, one is ensuring that the Department is prepared to conduct counter unmanned system operations, counter UAS operations. 2 is looking at how we respond to incidents that do occur by pulling together subject matter experts and resources. And then 3rd is tracking equipment and counter UAS equipment, UAS, one aspect of drones.
Into Iraq.
Unmanned systems, drones, are going to be something, again, that we will need to take a holistic, comprehensive approach to addressing.
Target on Tuesday.
Yeah. This location has been used in the past by groups like Iranian-backed militias to target U.S. forces at MSS Euphrates. But again, in terms of who is operating those vehicles or who is firing those rockets and mortars, that is something that, as I understand it, CENTCOM is still assessing.
Does it provide any support for the SDF in that operation?
Look, our forces are in Syria to conduct a counter-ISIS operation, right? The enduring defeat of ISIS. They have partnered with the SDF on those missions. Certainly they communicate with the SDF on a frequent basis, as partners do. But our forces in that region were threatened. We took action to mitigate that threat, and we'll do so again.